Okay, number 7. Graph these by factoring, plotting the roots and then the vertex. So move number 1, let's factor this. N squared minus 16n plus 60. What's going to multiply and give you 60, but add and give you negative 16? Make a list of 60. 60 is going to be 1 and 62 and 33 and 20. What's 60 divided by 4? 4 and 15, there's a ton that going to 65, and what is 5? 12, 6, and 10. So you got 1, 2, 3, 6 pairs to choose from. They gotta add and give you 16, but it's gotta be negative. So you gotta be looking at the 6 and the 10. The only way you can do that is if you go n minus a 6 and n minus a 10. So that is going to equal y. Alright. Okay, now once it's factored, so your general model for your factored form is y equals a x plus or minus a root x plus or minus a root. When it's factored, these roots are easy to find. Your roots are your x-intercepts, so my roots are going to be super easy to find. Okay, let's make a table. Here's what you want, here's what you have to do. You have to make the y be 0. So I'm going to make this y be a 0. So you kind of got to work backwards. I want my answer to be 0. Now this is a multiplication problem. So the only way you can multiply and have 0 for an answer is if you times by a 0. So now you're asking yourself, you got to plug in some numbers for x. What are you going to plug in for x, or for n, I guess? That's going to give you 0 for an answer. And one of them is a 6. Because if you plug a 6 in for n, it says to take away 6. So 6 take away 6, that is 0. And that multiplied by 6 take away 10 is going to be 0. So there is one of my roots, 6 and 0. So come over here, 6, put a dot, there you go. My other 0 is going to be 10. And I know that because if I plug in a 10 and do the math, it gives me a 0 for an answer. So 6 is a 0, 10 is a 0. So there we go. So move number 1, make sure you make a table. And you can't just say your roots are minus 6 and a minus 10, because that's going to be wrong. It's what you plug in to give you a 0. Okay, now my axis of symmetry is going to be in the very dead center of those two dots. So it's going to be right there. And here's how you find it. You take this 0, which is a 6. You take this one, a 10. You add them together. That's 16. You cut that in half, and that is 8. So my axis of symmetry is going to be 8. So I know my vertex is going to be over 8. The question is, I just don't know to go up or to go down, and how far. So just like everything else, if you want to figure the missing thing out, you got to plug some numbers in and do the math. That's kind of the theme. So I'm going to take 8. 8 is my x. So I'm going to take 8 and I'm going to put it there. I'm going to put it there. And let's see what we get for y. So now if I do that, that'll give me the y. Or you could take 8 and you could plug it into the original one, whatever one you like. But, so if you do this original one, make sure, so this n squared, I'm going to put parentheses, put the 8 in there. Because if you're going to plug in something, it's got to be in parentheses. Because if you plug in a negative without parentheses, your calculator is going to give you the wrong answer. Minus 16 times 8 plus 60. So if I do that, punch it in exactly like that looks on my calculator, it'll give you the answer. So I got a -4. Okay, and I think that's right. So -4. So that means I'm going to go over 8 and a -4, and that is my vertex right there. Connect your dots, and there you go. You're done. Okay, let's look at this one. You're missing the last term. So what is going to multiply and give you 0? Add and give you 2. The answer is a 2 and a 0. So it should be y equals x times x plus a 2. Okay, now I want to make a table, and I want to know what can I replace x with so my answer is 0. And this one, if I plug in here a -2, that'll do the trick. -2, 0. But now what am I going to plug in here that's going to give me 0 for an answer? And it is 0. So there are my two dots. I know it's kind of common sense. Your axis of symmetry's got to be right there. So it's -1. Now I'm going to take a -1 and I'm going to plug it in. -1 squared plus 2 times a -1. And that's going to be 1 plus a -2. 1 plus -2 is just a -1. So -1 and -1. So go left one, down one. And there is your parabola. Number 8. Okay, now let's go backwards. I'm going to give you a picture. You give me the model, the function. So the model you're going to use, because I have the roots, I'm going to use the factored. The factored model is y equals a, x plus or minus some roots, x plus or minus some root. So you're going to choose either between that or vertex. Y equals a, x minus h squared plus k. So how do you know which one to choose? If they give you the vertex, that's when you want to use vertex. But look right here, my vertex is somewhere between a -2 and a -2 point. It's not on a grid like that. It's in between. So my vertex is going to be some fraction. But my roots are on exact integers. They're on whole numbers. So I'm going to use, that's the hint that I'm going to use, the factored form. So let's make your table. What are your roots? This is a -1 and 0, and this is a 2 and 0. Okay, so I'm going to start plugging stuff in. Y equals a, x, there we go. Okay, now you gotta be tricky. You gotta remember, this is what you plugged in to give you a 0. So if I plug a -1 in there, the only way I'm going to get 0 is if it's a +1. So your roots from the equation to the table, they're kind of opposite. X minus 2 and x plus 1. Okay, now you got to find a. And how you're going to find a is you're going to have to plug something in and do the math and figure out what a is. So we need another point. Look, you got a point right there. You got a point there. It looks like you got a point there and a point there. So I'm going to use this right here. I'm going to use 0 down 2. Okay, now, so you find a third point. Doesn't matter which one you choose. But now that I know an x and a y, I'm going to take this 0 and I'm going to put it there for x, there for x, and the y I'm going to put right there. So here we go, -2 in for y. A, I don't know. X is going to be 0 plus 1. And 0 minus 2. So -2 equals a times 0 plus 1 is just 1. 0 take away 2 is -2. -2 times 1. So we got -2 equals a -2a. -2 times a. Undo the multiplication. Divide by -2, divide by -2. So A is 1. So that means my answer, y equals 1, x plus 1, x minus 2. There is my function that describes that picture. 9. Okay, analyze this function. Answer these 3 questions. Is the graph concave up or is it concave down? And A determines that, which is this guy right here. 3 is positive, so it is concave up. If A is negative, it's concave down. Okay, what are your x-intercepts? What are your roots, or what are your zeros? And they are going to be in here, but you got to ask yourself, what are you going to plug in for x that gives you a 0? So one of them is a 5, and the other one is a minus 2. And what is the axis of symmetry? So if you've got one here at 5 and one here at negative 2, the axis of symmetry has got to be right in the dead center. So I'm going to take 5, I'm going to take negative 2, add them. That's 3. Cut that in half. That's 1.5. So your axis of symmetry is right here. 1.5, x equals 1.5. You just find the average of your 2 roots. 10. Okay, look at this graph. So there are no markings on the grid. There's no numbers. You just kind of estimate. So describe whether this function could be used to model the graph. So look at A. So move number 1, A is your vertex model. So y equals a x minus h squared plus k. So I guess it's a typo. There should be a squared there. So anytime you got a perfect square like that, that's your vertex model. That's negative, so that means it's concave down. So far so good. Now plus 6, this is your horizontal shift. That's moving left or right. And the plus 6 means I'm going to start here, and I'm going to go left 6 and then up 2. So the answer is no, because the vertex is at a negative 6, 2. And this vertex is at a plus 6, 2. So what about B? B, same. This is factored form. The model is y equals a x plus or minus a root x plus or minus a root. That's negative, so it's concave down. So far we're good. But my roots, remember your roots are what happens at 0. So what are you going to plug in to get 0? I'm going to plug in a minus 5 and a minus 8. So that means my root should be right here, minus 5. Minus 8, and these roots are at maybe a plus 5 and a plus 8. So this is also no, because your roots are on the wrong side. Okay, 11. Now let's talk about vertex form. So look at this one. If you tried to factor this, what's going to multiply and give you 12, add and give you a minus 8? And the answer is no integer will. It's probably going to be some crappy fraction or some decimal number. Nothing you can... shoot, I take that back. That's just negative 6 and a negative 2. So, I lied to you. This one can factor pretty easy. So if you factor it, so look this way, you go x minus 6 and x minus 2, plot your zeros, draw your line of symmetry, find your vertex, and you're done. This guy is what I wanted to look at. What about this? What's going to times and give you 10, but add and give you 6? and this is nothing. So 10 is either going to be a 1 and a 10 or a 2 and a 5, and there's no way you can get a 6 out of those. So if you cannot factor it, we are going to morph it into vertex form by completing the square. So let's look at this second one first. You can't factor it because the 10 is what's jacking you up. That's a stupid number. So you're going to take that 10 and you are just going to scoot it over. And then you're going to be creative and replace it with the number of your choice. The number you're going to replace it with, you got to complete the square. You want to create a perfect square. So the number is 9. And how you got that was you looked at 6. You cut it in half. 3 plus 3 is 6. So 3 times 3 is 9. So I'm just scooting the 10 over and I'm replacing it with what I want. I want a 9. But I can't just add 9. The very moment you add 9, you got to take it right back. So plus 9 minus 9, that's 0. So you have not touched it. Okay, now let's factor this. Well, it's going to times and give you 9, add and give you 6, a 3 and a 3. So this is x plus 3 times itself. But anytime you have something times itself, write it as x plus 3 squared. Okay, now let's combine these. A minus 9 and a 10 is 1. Okay, this is vertex form. So this is a piece of cake now to find your vertex. Start here at 0, 0. Looks like that's 0, 0. Plus 3 means I'm going to go 3 to the left. So 1, 2, 3, and then up 1 right there. There's my vertex. Okay, now I just need one more dot. So I'm going to choose a dot close to that vertex. So that vertex is left 3, up 1. So I'm going to try left 2. So I'm going to take a negative 2 and I'm going to plug it in here. Negative 2 plus 3, parentheses first, that's 1. 1 squared is 1, plus 1 is 2. So negative 2, 2. And this is going to reflect there. And I'm done. Okay, let's look at this first one. So the first one you could do factoring, and you're going to get the same answers if you do vertex. So let's scoot the 12 over. X squared minus 8x plus 12. Let's replace it with a 4, and a 4 is 8. So 4 times 4 is 16. And then take away 16. This is going to factor to x minus 4 times x minus 4. So that's the same thing as x minus 4 squared. And a minus 16 plus 12 is a minus 4. So now I'm starting here at 0, 0. Minus 4, that means I'm going to go 4 to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4. Down 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. There is my vertex. It is at over 4, down 4. So let's get a dot close to it. Let's try over 5. So 5, plug it in for x. Do the math, it will give you the y. 5 minus 4 is 1. Squared is 1. 1 minus 4 is a minus 3. So now go over 5 and down 3. Reflect that dot right there. And you are done. Okay, last one. Write the function. Let's go backwards. I give you the picture. You give me the function. So look, this picture has no roots. So you're not going to use factored. It does give you a vertex. So the vertex right here is over 1 up 3. I'm going to use vertex model. The vertex model is y equals a x minus h squared plus k. So I'm going to plug in my 1 and my 3. So it's going to be y equals a. Okay, it's 1. And I went to the right, so that means it's got to be a minus 1. Plus 3. And now all I got to do is find a. So you're looking for that last a. It's the same every single time. Find a point. Plug it in. So I'm going to find that point right there. Over 2 up 6. I'm going to plug 2 in for x and 6 in for y. So 6 equals a. 2 minus 1 squared plus 3. parentheses first, that's a 1. 1 squared is 1. 6 equals 1 times a plus 3. Get a out by itself. Let's undo the plus 3 minus 3 minus 3. A is 3. So my answer is y equals 3 x minus 1 squared plus 3, and that is the review. So if you're good on these and you got some good notes, the test should be good. So I'll text you Tuesday night, get on Power School, click on your grades, find the review, and then you can watch the YouTube. Watch this again if you need to. Put stars by the ones you don't know. Make sure you come in the morning before after school. Let's go over them. So you come in Wednesday ready to go.